I've got a group up here of folks that do that every day. So I'd like to go through and have each of these guys tell you who they are, who they work for, and really share with you some of the cool things that their companies are doing locally and are really driving the defense industry nationwide because of the work that they do here. So first up, we've got Rob Mitrevsky here. Rob works with L3Harris. Rob, will talk about what you do, how long you've been in the industry, what L3Harris does, that sort of thing.
Sure. Thanks, and welcome everyone. Thanks for having me. Congressman, thanks. We really appreciate you putting this on. I work for L3Harris, as John said. I've been with the company for 33 years, actually. It's been several different companies in that time. ITT, ITT, Excelis, Harris, L3Harris. We've been on the corner of Cook Road at Lima for just about 35 years now. So you'll notice our building as you drive by there. Little known secret, we build space-based mission solutions for civil and DoD applications. So we do weather instruments, right? Every satellite image you've ever seen behind the weather person on the news has been from an instrument built in Fort Wayne, either in that building or in a different building in town. And currently we've also expanded into the hypersonic mission, where we're doing missile defense tracking from space of hypersonic threats. That's been a very exciting transition for us. We can talk about that a little bit. History of the company a little bit is we've been here since the late 1930s. We were founded by a gentleman named Philo Farnsworth. For those of you that don't know, Philo invented the modern day television. He invented the cathode ray tube. He came to Fort Wayne for a variety of reasons in the 30s, and much of that had to do with supply chain talent. With the top engineering schools in the Midwest, there are few places in the country where there are so many top-ranked engineering schools within a 235-mile radius. There are 6 of them. So he came for that. He came for supply chain of magnet wire, which was very big here in Fort Wayne, and was part of the television technology back then. He came for a supply chain of craftsman talent from the Amish community who built furniture, and the TV had to be furniture. So we're very proud to be part of this community for as long as we have, and looking forward to today's conversation.
Thanks, Rob. Next up, we have Todd Hatt. Todd's with General Dynamics here in town. Todd?
Thank you. Nice seeing everybody today. So as John was saying, I'm Todd Hatt. I'm our director of our battle management systems and our Fort Wayne site executive. Basically, behind part of the dealerships our building right off Interstate 69. So we've been in General Dynamics here. We'll be approaching 20 years in town this September. Before then, we were a small startup called Command Systems, founded by Don Willis. Predominantly in Fort Wayne, Indiana, we specialize in vehicle battle management integration. We do command and control C2 applications, keeping our soldiers safe on the battlefield, enable them to communicate across the battlefield. And then more recently, we've been doing precision guided units, basically creating a guidance electronic unit, enabling really munitions coming out of ballistic guns like a 777 howitzer, flying 120 kilometers and be able to hit a target without using GPS, as well as kind of adding radio comms inside of those chips so they can have swarming munitions to go after multiple targets on the battlefield. So we've kind of, like I said, been here about 20 years. We have roughly 65 people local, about 200 in the state of Indiana, and are continuing to grow.
Cool. Next up, we have Derek Ferrer from E&E Systems. I think that's the last one they've made here. Oh, okay. Park.
Thanks, John. So good morning, everyone. I'm happy to be here. EA Systems here in Northeast Indiana is focused both on the defense industry as well as commercial industry. So you guys probably all see our large site in the airport. We manufacture there both commercial aircraft electronics. So if you've ever been on a Boeing airplane, any of the cabin systems or some of the control systems on the airplane, that's electronics that are designed by BAE and often built here in Fort Wayne. And also any kind of Boeing aircraft out of the engine, there's what's called a full authority digital engine control. So it's the engine computer designed and built by BAE Systems here in Fort Wayne. So you interact with our products quite frequently if you ever do air travel. More recently, BAE Systems has acquired a defense footprint here in Fort Wayne. We followed the industry a couple years ago. Raytheon had a large merger with United Technologies, and as part of that merger activity, they were required to divest some of their business, one of which being was known as the One Radios business, focused on multi-band, tactical communications equipment, crypto technology. That business was based here in Fort Wayne with Raytheon. It's the same building here as Jeff until 2 years ago when we were bought by BAE Systems, and we established a new site over on US 30 across from Sweetwater. And at that site, that's where our engineering talent base and our program management teams all work on the design and support of our military-borne radios that as of the end of last year, we moved manufacturing up from Florida here in Fort Wayne in that factory built by the airport. So our footprint is from here. We're up to about 900 people in the area. And about me, I'm a 16-year veteran of the industry. Look forward to the conversation.
Okay, and last but not least, certainly Jeff Polhamus from Raytheon. Jeff?
Hi, it's great to be here today. Jeff Polhamus, I'm the site lead here for Raytheon Technologies, and I've been with the company for 35 years here in Fort Wayne the entire time. Back when all the local people knew us as Megafox, we've been through a few mergers, acquisitions, many changes and things since then. I believe our footprint, we've been here in town since the 40s as we came to town, similar to what was mentioned with L3Harris. Also changed to the Megawired logistical chain. That's why we ended up here as well. So here in town, we have about 550 employees. It's all engineering. We don't do any manufacturing here in town anymore, but it's all the engineering design. We do our manufacturing in a lot of it in Florida, our Fort Mississippi. So primarily what we do here is a combination of electronic warfare systems. That's a really big part of what we do in town. That's what I do. Command and control systems, communication, crypto, and a lot of advanced technology business, which is basically what Fort Wayne, because of the engineering talent we have, that was also mentioned earlier. Our business here in Fort Wayne, I think like others, we're really looking to bring a lot of business here to town because, the difficulty in hiring engineers and things sometimes on the coast, with the cost of living stuff, it tends to be very difficult. And so Raytheon is really looking to bring more business here to town. So electronic warfare systems, which, I work out of, one of the predominant things we do here is we build a common electronics unit. What does that mean, right? For the next generation jammer. So basically the box is the brain for that next generation pod that flies on an E-18 Growler. We do all the demodulations, the waveforms, creating all the jamming waveforms, all of the control of that pod is all designed here at Fort Wayne. Personally, I work on a very large Army electronic warfare battle management system, which is the first of its kind across the fleet. So a lot of really advanced technology is done here that probably a lot of people don't know about. Sometimes you're not supposed to know about it, but but really interesting things, and like others, really trying to grow, trying to bring in new people, and really excited to be here.
Thanks, Jeff. So one of the things that, came up here in the last year or two, probably many of you know this, that Congressman Bennett was on a task force to kind of look into what the future of defense is going to look like. Again, as you can see, we have a long history not only of supporting our warfighters, but also using a lot of that technology and manufacturing capacity that we've had to provide commercial uses for the technology, whether it's building television sets or building handheld calculators that artillery guys could then use to calculate when their shells are going to land down range, that sort of thing. But so the big part or big issue that came out of the Future of Defense report is how many of our supply chains run through the Pacific and Asia, even our allies in Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, find themselves overshadowed by the growth and the work being done by the Chinese military. So I guess what I'd like each of these guys to talk about maybe is what they're seeing in terms of reshoring of supply chains, how they deal with that, with those issues, especially, talk about so much work they do in electronics, how do you get the chips, where do you get the equipment that goes in the equipment that they're building. So I'll just go down the line again and start with you, Rob, and let you talk about that.
Sure, thanks. We do have dual-use technology, as I talked earlier. Environmental monitoring and missile detection aren't actually too far from each other. They both use infrared technology. We do that from space. We have some unique needs because we're in space in terms of our supply chain, right? There's a lot of rigor around space-based applications in supply chain. We use both local suppliers, suppliers around the country, and some offshore capability in terms of the high-end electronics. Like everyone else around here, we've seen pressure in terms of electronic microcircuits in particular. And, certainly we have spent a lot of time over the last couple of years expanding our sources of supply to create optionality within those areas. We've worked hard to create alternate parts lists so that we can have choices in terms of microelectronics. We've worked with the DoD, our end customers, and some of our supply chain to drive inherent capabilities within them that would rely less on others, particularly offshore silicon. I think we've spent internal money quite a bit to create a production flow. We have 550 people here that rely on steadiness of work. We don't want to deal with ebbs and flows that come with supply chain disruptions. So, we've created some optionality in terms of getting non-flight electronics, as we call them, things that don't go to space, easier to acquire, and use those to be able to move our product forward as we manufacture it while we're waiting on longer supply chain lead times in flight parts. So we've done quite a bit of internal investment on that, just to make sure that we have some predictability in our delivery schedule and our promises to our customers.
Great. Todd, sorry.
Yeah, no, so Rob said a lot of the things that we're also facing at General Dynamics, with really that microelectronics kind of being the big problem child as we try to get more defense type ruggedization on those chips. How do we get one? Where are we getting them from? I think the White House had another executive order come out that you have to have a second and really third tier suppliers to track where are those chips coming from, what type of code exists on those chips. There are a lot of fakes out there, and our really kind of supply base is kind of looking at that. And then other issues, you know, if you follow that community and these foundries, right? All major foundries are fully booked to capacity through 2023, right? So this is not going to get resolved any near term. So, and really the other problem that's even happening even today, Ukraine, 90% of the neon gas that goes inside these chips are created in Ukraine. And that supply base is being disrupted. Then also then foundries can't build the chips that us as commercial defense companies, we do compete right with the same or similar type of chips that Samsungs and Apples and everybody wants their smartphones. So really kind of what, Rob and some of these other guys will probably be talking about is really kind of where's that supply chain rethinking, and this is where, smart engineers come into it, looking at other chips, how do we then put those into a military environment that's shock and vibe and extreme temperatures and really has to work 100% of the time, not 99% of the time, but 100, and getting that reliability built into the overall supply chain base is really kind of a heavy focus for ours right now.
Yeah, so Derek, if we said everything on that sheet,
I think we just add a couple points. So if you think about the products that we build, the business that we're in, you mentioned about kind of foundry being, low value this year. But the interesting thing about that is kind of the vintage and things of electronics that our products use is not the state of the art. It's not the thing that drives the demand, right? It's the smartphones you carry, the vehicles that people want to buy, drives the demand in these foundries, and they want their capacity and production lines to meet that demand. And we're kind of, as big as the defense industry is, it's not nearly as big as kind of the commercial industry that utilizes microelectronics. So, that's a difficult thing to have. So I think that's kind of a longer term answer is, are we designing products in a way that are easily upgradable or can easily take tech insertions to take advantage of newer technologies or things that are more aligned to where microelectronics are going, so that we can stay in line with the production capacity that's being invested in, and maybe to expand on that. When John talked about the reliance on the supply chain goes through kind of Pacific Rim, I think all the capacity in the microelectronics industry in terms of foundry or packaging houses is over in like China, South Korea, and Taiwan, predominantly, and they invest billions of dollars a year to create capacity for this. That investment for any one company in the defense industry, there's no return on that investment for us. It's a problem that needs to be solved more on a grander scale. And I know there's been some action legislatively with the CHIPS Act and things where the government's trying to either invest or incentivize investment in that. And I think that's going to start to move things in the right direction in terms of bringing that capability back to the United States and giving kind of our industry more options and more sources of supply, both from a capacity standpoint, but also from a, let's say, a supply chain, securing the supply chain, mainly from like a cyber standpoint, kind of protection against counterfeits.
Yeah, we're lucky that, have Senator Young, who's a former Marine and, a U.S. Senator, one of our U.S. Senators here from Indiana, that's been doing a lot with the CHIPS Act and trying to beef up our abilities to be able to compete in the future. Now, Jeff, with you, with 35 years of experience, you've probably seen these things come and go a couple of times. So, any way you can make any of us a little smarter in terms of how we address these issues?
Yeah, I think it's a few things that, one, picking up on what Derek said as far as open architecture systems, right, and technology insertion. That's really a huge point of emphasis for the DoD today. In the old days where, you would get paid build a system from cradle to grave. It would be very unique. And if it needed to be something new, you have to go back and redesign pieces, and that's just not the way it works anymore, right? We need to be able to all build to the same standards, the same architecture. So as the supply chain can support, as technology increases, we're now able to replace faster and easier. In addition to the cell cut industry, keeping things, metals, materials, things, and as you look across the supply base, things, making sure you have stocks in hand well ahead. And it's difficult when it comes to increased investment to keep more inventory in-house, but it's almost something you have to do today. The thing that a multi-million-dollar system is waiting on might be a 50-cent component, right? I mean, so that whole supply chain, that whole basic knowing exactly where everything is at and when it's coming in is really super important. And I think that you're also seeing now, whereas we look at contracting, really across the DoD, they're also contracting materials well ahead of design programs to make sure that we have this, the lead times are just getting longer and longer. So you have to make sure you have the materials in-house to be able to deliver on time, because the warfighters don't wait, right? They have to have these things when they need them. So it really takes a lot more emphasis to make sure that everything is in place.
It's just the material stuff, like that involves saying, where do you get the metals and materials that you're going to use? There's a lot of the stuff, the electronics. It doesn't take a lot of it, but when you're producing 2,000 or 3,000 units a month or whatever, it's something that and it cuts into that supply. This is I've got kind of a fairly softball question here. Does anybody want to take a softball question? I'll just go with the houses. We'll start it the other way. Softball. Okay, well, there we go. We've got a lot of people here that are either smaller, medium-sized companies, some economic developers that work with those companies. My guess is that you guys do a lot and kind of seek out maybe veteran-owned business, minority-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, those sorts of things. How do you go about that? What kind of things would, say, an L3Harris look for in that regard, and why is it important to you?
Sure. Look, we're all part of the community, right? We have 4 individuals sitting up here that have been in Fort Wayne, and we all want the success of our local community. It's why we're here. We want not only to serve our customers, but we want to serve our community and our workforce. And so for us, there's an inherent ease in involving the local community in terms of source of supply. It's a little harder, like I said, for us in terms of space qualification and the rigor that goes around that. But we do have certainly small businesses involved. By the way, the government requires it on FAR-based acquisitions as well, right? So you do have a government that's overseeing that, and then you have I think corporations that would like to do that for the local community anyway. Look, it's easy when I go use machine parts from a local supplier, because we can have daily interactions, face-to-face interactions about our business, about our deliveries, about our promises, et cetera, right? So I do think it's important for us to spread that wealth locally and to spread that wealth in lots of different sizes of companies as well, right? There's uniqueness in small business, there's innovation, there's agility that comes from small companies that can drive some of our offers as well. We see the value.
So since you took that question, I'll go back to Jeff and come back this way. So kind of adding on to that, again, we have folks here that may be interested in, becoming suppliers in the defense industry. Jeff, does Raytheon, do they have like some master lists that they go to? Do they have people out in the street seeing what kind of capabilities there may be either locally or, when your folks want to buy parts or they need something manufactured, how do they go about finding those people that can do that?
Yeah, so when it comes to supply base and small business, all those kind of things, so the answer to that is it kind of depends. So if it's hardware entities that we're trying to buy, we have preferred vendor lists, and supply chain is constantly looking for alternate vendors. You would be surprised, even if it's a company as large as ours, where there's certain technology, we'll find one vendor. We're scanning the country for alternative sources and other vendors and things like that. So supply chain is always, and so, from a small business perspective, certainly making contact with our supply chain people, getting yourself qualified, getting on the list of that, and so that then it's easy to buy rather than really hard to buy. But for example, I run a large software program, and small business to me is, I have one, job that we're working on now. I have 6 small business partners in all software houses, and it's because they all bring small, they may be small, but they have an incredible amount of talent. It might be a few people, but they have significant knowledge in niche areas. It's just really important for us, and even a company as large as Raytheon, we can't be an expert in everything, and we don't necessarily desire. We can't afford to invest in every technology known to man, right? And so we're always out there looking for experts that come in and bring something that I really need from a small business. And when they come in, they also bring a very different perspective. And I'm constantly learning from these people as we team with them, the insights they have and the background that they have and that sort of thing. So, diversity within our companies and things we always talk about is important. Diversity within our teams is incredibly important as well. We're not going to get ahead by just doing the same things as everybody. So that's really important to me from a supply chain perspective.
So, Derek, same question, but since BAE is 4-0, first off, the question about how do you find the folks, but then what kind of special issues do you guys have to deal with to, deal with ITAR and some of the other, federal laws that govern the defense industry?
Yeah, I'll address the second part of it first. So BAE Systems here in the United States operates 100% separately from the parent company in the UK under a special security agreement between the US entity, the UK company, the US government. That allows us to work classified DoD contracts. So we have our own CEO, our own board of directors here, and operationally, we're just a U.S. company here in the United States, so any of the same kind of compliance to ITAR and things like that Raytheon or L3 or GE we go through as well. We just have some extra scrutiny that we apply because we've got colleagues in the UK and other places maybe more predominantly than smaller companies. But as far as bringing small business into the defense industry, Rob talked about kind of the federal acquisition regs, require, certain level of small business and things on certain programs. Over the last few years, we've seen government acquisition trend toward what's called other transaction authorities. So, otherwise called like military acquisition authority, where kind of the bar that's kind of set off to the side with a whole bunch of other different rules that apply. One of the key things about that is that incentivizes the use of what's called non-traditional defense contractors, and any small business automatically qualifies as a non-traditional defense contractor, and a lot of those acquisitions are centered around developing the capability and things. And so, my message is that, if you're a small business and you have a unique capability, whether it's a technology or manufacturing process or even specific resources, and I think like software systems engineering that can benefit, those are things that we're interested in, right? In that kind of realm. I mean, we just recently won a major competition with the Air Force to, develop and produce and do high frequency radio for them. So high frequency radio, think ham radio. Familiar with ham radio? That's what it is. It's a key contingency communication solution on Air Force platforms. Like I said, SATCOM, you were operating a SATCOM denied environment that had a way for long-range communication. HF is the tool. We partnered with a small company in Texas, about 20 people. They make a commercial high-frequency radio that anybody can go buy for about $4,000 right off their website. And we partnered with them through this kind of, this other transaction authority, competition, adapted their technology to, I'll say, military applications. So kind of the requirements for, the platforms we go on are much higher. So we work with them with our expertise in ruggedizing it and how you adapt this technology to the use case, but it's their core technology, right? We don't have HF expertise in these systems. They were key, they were critical to our success in winning it. So those are the kind of things, maybe not on that level, as a kind of a commercial product, but think in a similar vein. If there are technologies and things that you think would be beneficial or unique, offer advantage, those are things we want to hear about.
And Derek, when you talk about those OTAs, it's not just trying to find the niche technologies, but because, as you mentioned, the non-traditional content, if we don't have non-traditional partners, we're not allowed to compete with those. You have to be able to show a significant, whatever that means, right? We're still trying to define that. A significant amount of work performed by non-traditional entities. So it's really important, that we create those relationships and we get to know everybody.
Yeah, so a quick follow-up on that, Derek. So, do you have folks that say work with the local academic institutions, or it's one thing to say, well, yeah, we like working with innovators or whatever, but what some crazy inventors is you just show up at the front desk at BAE and say, I got this great idea, or what's the process?
Admittedly, we don't have that kind of resource locally here in Fort Wayne. I mean, these systems is a multi-billion-dollar company. So, there are investments we make every year in research and development, and some of that money goes toward partnering with universities and ensuring technology. But admittedly, a lot of that kind of focus and things kind of get centralized to the centers of gravity of our company. So, we're highly centralized in the Northeast. So, a lot of that resources that do that kind of come out of there. So, I think maybe the way I want to leave that is, I think that's an area for us to improve on. And how do we take advantage? Like I was saying, we're 3 to 4 hours away from huge pools of talent and research that there's probably better ways to collaborate on that.
How do we take that MIT money out of Boston and move it to Lafayette? Todd, I know we were talking earlier before we came in here, about what General Dynamics does here at and primarily with the design work that you guys do. I'm guessing that when you go out and look for local help, local companies, it's a different skill set, maybe even hanging out at different types of places as opposed to the shop floor or whatever, looking for manufacturing capacity. Care to comment on how you kind of find those ideas and those potential vendors for the community?
Yeah, so, as he was saying, we do ground the software systems, kind of test engineering. And really kind of events like this where we kind of get out and meet, certain people, understand what they do and how do we bring it in. Or, as they were saying with these OTAs, if you join them, there's a dozen or so OTAs. Some exist somewhat locally. I think the closest OTA headquarters is in Sterling Heights. But other, there's gonna have defense expos that exist, or for the Army has its AUSA event, or for PDO Aviation has its Quad A event. The Navy has something similar. So if you're kind of a small business or non-traditional, it's worth going to events like this. It's worth going to events and just meeting and talking and getting to know people, because while the defense community is quite large, it's also really small. And you start to recognize the same faces, you'll see them in different things. And then it's getting to talk, this group right here specializes in some key artificial intelligence or machine learning capability. And then you kind of get to talk with them. And then, companies like ours are really good at working with the smalls and trying to help nurture them along, because we have expertise in how to get products to the field, right? What does it take to actually have our equipment in the hands of warfighters, helping them fight the fight? Now, that comes with years of experience and expertise. I've been in the business 18 years with GD, and all these guys, right, are all high teens, 20s, 30 years. But what we're really good at is knowing and seeing these key technologies, or it could be a process, or how to do something differently, and kind of look at it and then work with companies like ours. We're not scary, right? I think a lot of sometimes small businesses think the largest will just take their work, right? No, that's not how we're incentivized. The government sets up contracts, right? As we were saying, where small businesses and the minority-owned kind of businesses keep their IP, and then we work with those companies to get it in the hands, because there is a lot of uniqueness that has to happen to be able to survive the extreme environmentals that our warfighters have to deal with.
So I'll let you kind of wrap this section up, Rob. Other than just hiring Iowa Farnsworth to create products for you, where do you guys go to find your vendors, find the innovation in the community?
Well, look, I think talent isn't scarce in the Midwest, right? So we have, as I said earlier, we have some of the top engineering schools in the nation within just a couple hundred miles of these schools. So that means that, for my last calculation, those top 6 schools, about 20,000 engineering students leave and graduate every year that are in the state, so they're Midwestern. They go to the coast, in our case, if they want to be in the space business, so they come to us. At some point, there's a pandemic, or there's a family that people want to be close to when they come back. And so we import talent quite well in terms of our business. 25% of my workforce is new from the last 18 months. So in terms of talent, I think there's a great amount of talent in the Midwest that is probably underestimated, right? Technical talent. Those same folks go to every one of these smaller companies as well, right? We outsource 60% of every dollar we have. And the key for us is that we work best athlete in terms of our products, right? We're known by our customer as not being arrogant or selfish about taking the work in ourselves. We don't need to insource anything that someone else can do better, right? So that provides a lot of opportunity for folks that are either in pure sort of engineering side, in terms of their business offering, or pure manufacturing side in terms of their business offering. I think the key for us is having a meritocracy that drives our solutions to our customers forward. And as we can do that locally, we want to, for the reasons I cited before. It's easier to do it locally, right? There's accessibility, and there's community pride, and all those things. So, and as we've said before, I don't think it's a scary thing for you all to want to work with us, and vice versa. I think there's a lot of benefit to be had between small and large companies working together. So we're all in for it.
Yeah, the best part of being a moderator is I got to come up with all the questions, so all the stuff that I was interested in, I could get these guys up here. I know we're running close on time, maybe
We have
1
time
minute.
for Q&A as well.
Okay, well, let's just go to Q&A then. Well, I'll tell you what, one quick run down the line. We've got a lot of local leaders here. I see a number of legislators. others, what in the, where you guys are sitting, are there things that the local community can do to really help you succeed and have us continue being a big player in the defense industry here in Northeast Indiana? Jeff, we'll start with you and come back this way. And
I mean, I think from a community perspective, I mean, I guess I look out at the crowd here today in Northeast Indiana, and I look at it as, okay, so we happen to be sitting on stage because we're the larger companies, right? That's the only reason we're sitting up here. I look at this as we're just one big community and one big team, right? It takes all of us to succeed. And I think, you know, even being in this business for 35 years, I think we're just starting to realize the impact Northeast Indiana can have in this marketplace, the talent we can bring here, how we can all work together with all the talent, the capabilities and things to even bring more work to this area. So, you know, whether it's, you know, for whatever role you have as someone in this room, how we can figure out how to take this community and you know, it's that old, you know, 1 + 1 has to equal more than 2, right? How do we work together to expand all of our businesses, our growth, to bring new business, to make this attractive? Because the Midwest is a very attractive place to be right now. If you look at inflation and things like that, you know, if the price of a house on the West Coast doubles, that's much different than the price of a house here and the affordability. And you know, you're at the point where a lot of times you can't attract talent on the coast anymore because it's just too hard for some young kid coming out of Purdue to be able to afford an apartment there or whatever, right? So I think it's that focus of communication, attending events, working together, and trying to figure out how we all bring more talent to this area.
Yeah, so I think that probably sums up a lot of what we've all talked about and what the community's been working on really over the last couple of years. So yeah, Q&A, got a couple of minutes if anybody has any questions for any specific. Okay, Taylor's got a mic for you back there.
This work? My name is Billy Mitchell, and I guess the general discussion has been focused on finding vendor partners and so forth. I'd like to ask this a little bit differently. I've been around 20 years. I think everybody understands it's a great place to live, great place to grow your kids, low cost of living, excellent schools, all that kind of stuff. But for some reason, we don't really have a really major, let's call it, footprint with big companies like yourself. What can we do here in Alton? And years ago, I know 9 blocks former Raytheon had thousands and thousands of people working. And I came here many years ago myself to visit with them, we were partnering with them. I'm just amazed at all they had. Over time, it's gotten less and less. What can we do to reverse that trend to make Indiana a more attractive place for major companies to put larger facilities in? For example, I'm not trying to knock this Raytheon, but it's on your production down in Florida. You said right here. So I'm not trying to pick on you, I'm just sure across the board. So what is it?
It's good to see you, Billy.
I was gonna walk up and say hi to you.
Yeah.
Now we'll do that. But very seriously, in terms of really having an impact and being part of the defense industry, having a major footprint here, I think we are going, for some reason, across all the board here, we don't want to do that. So could you guys address what we could do to make your management more interested?
Yeah, I know Derek knows any PhDs done by that. Eric?
So I guess I can't speak to kind of why that happened in the past. So I'm just, you know, I'm one of the guys Ron talked about that grew up in the Midwest. I went to the coast for a while, came back to the family. So I've been back in the area for 3 years. So, you know, I can speak to the last 3 years where, you know, I'm already seeing that shift. So I'm going to take credit that, you know, when BE Systems acquired the airborne radios business from Raytheon, one of the first decisions we made was we had to move that manufacturing that Raytheon was doing. We had to move it back up here. So, yeah, so we're doing things like that, and our companies are, you know, in terms of, you know, it's hard to talk kind kind of major investments in terms of manufacturing infrastructure and things that are greenfield, right? You know, the incentive is usually, okay, they have installed infrastructure already, and you know, the case is usually to make additional investments where there's already installed infrastructure. So we're doing that with PA systems. There is a lot of focus on, I'll say, the engineering talent growth here in Fort Wayne. I know, you know, we have a strategy to grow kind of the engineering work that we're doing here. Over at the site across from Sweetwater, we already had plans to, you know, expand the footprint there because we've got more work on El Rod and Rob's, you know, business at L3 is trying to do the same thing. So, yeah, I think that there isn't anything specific here in Northeast Indiana that, you know, I'll say kind of regulatory wise or anything like that that's going to incentivize it. Like, I think the incentives are there. And I think, you know, people are starting to now wake up and it got accelerated pandemic of, you know, I don't have to live in a high cost of living place to do my job. I can live where I want to live. And yeah, I think, you know, a lot of it with kind of this region is, you know, kind of self-advertising, the word of mouth and working your connections and kind of, you know, cheerleading, hey, this is a great place to live. It's a great place to raise your kids. And, you know, there's, you know, a lot of things to do outside of work that are interesting and fun and nearby that, you know, that's kind of the, you know, kind of the icing on the cake for coming out here. And I think we're seeing evidence of that. You know, our staff, we've grown and grew by 40% over the last couple of years, even since we assisted with wireless. And, you know, all that talent is either, you know, coming out of local colleges or we're bringing talent from outside.
I know, Todd, you would like to add something to that?
No, I was just gonna add on a little bit, just saying, it's like a lot of word of mouth, right? When I travel the country visiting different sites or different Army installations or Marine Corps, the first question is, what's in Fort Wayne, Indiana? Why are you guys there, right? So I think a lot of it as a local community is just getting that word out. And one of the, you know, reactions to the COVID pandemic, it's really been now, people are now focusing more on moving things more central to, you know, the Midwest. And I think that's where our companies are seeing the growth and we're getting talent. I mean, when we open up reps, we're getting, you know, engineering talent really from a lot of those coastal states when we move more Midwestern. So I think big area is word of mouth because we're not near a major military installation. Or we're not really headquarters near where our customers buy, whether they're the acquisition for different program executive offices. But I think we're starting to see that you know, tide turn to more Midwestern focus.
I know we're getting up. I know these guys will be around to answer questions afterwards. We have more time.
Last question.
Last question. Okay. Okay. Go to the back. Sorry.
These are rhetorical questions for the basically they my thoughts. I had a small business. Business less than $5 million. I grew stock. I'm trying to look at navigating the DoD system. And I guess my first question is there a way to streamline that DoD contracting process? And if that seems too big to handle, we used to joke at the work about how you basically needed a full-time person that understood the DoD system, understood what we did, and who did nothing but go through and scan for open contracts, trying to figure out what ones to bid on, bid on them, and follow up on bids. And we're wearing many hats, that there's no way. And with the economy the way it is in the last several years, and the businesses out there, with Larry down the streets and buy parts off of me, no questions asked. Why do I fool around with that rapidly for the street? So along those lines, it's good economic development. And is that something that either local contractors like yourselves can do to provide a service to help small businesses like ourselves that are locally to try to keep things local? Or is that something a third party like our economic development people could offer, maybe a person like Bruce or a pool of people that are maybe semi-retired or retired that can assist some of these companies in doing that? And then the third question is there a way that maybe we could offer some sort of training that these companies could sign up for to learn how to navigate that system and do it effectively.
I know Todd wanted to at least answer one of those questions, but when you kept going, Scott, I'm not sure.
So, at a couple high level, there's many different ways to attack that. As you saw, we all kind of chuckled up here because really that DoD acquisition process is quite cumbersome. And it's, like Congressman Banks and Chairman Rogers there, one of the major issues is we got to get back to being able to buy, right? The continuing resolution year over year cause all types of churn for us. It makes it very difficult to be able to plan our contracts, get stopped and started. As a large, right, we can maybe handle that a little bit, but it's very difficult. And it flows down to then the smalls. And then to really kind of get after what you were saying, a lot of our companies have mentor-protege relationships where we'll kind of take you underneath the wing, right? Because we are incentivized, as Derek was saying, to bring on those smalls and try to help you through that process. And really, a lot of that's kind of how that military acquisition with OTAs came about, is trying to help large companies help small businesses bring their core technologies to bear. So I think it's really kind of getting back into having our annual defense budgets, every September, October timeframe, having continuity at our level that we can then better help continuity at your own level.
Yeah, I would just say kind of to the OTA. So, these other transaction authorities are not directly run by U.S. government contracting officers. They're run by consortiums, and there's a number of consortiums. We have 10s or 20s that and anybody can join with a fee. And once you join a consortium, then you can you're eligible to see kind of what's up for bid, like what kind of opportunities are out there. And one, that's a way, because our companies are pretty much members of every single consortium. That's how you can get connected that way. But if I was, if I was starting a small business or I had a small business, I'd be looking to find a larger contractor with familiarity to work with, like to partner with, to see if I can offer my capabilities to them, because through that relationship, you get kind of the insulation from the U.S. government contracting and kind of the perturbations and things that we're equipped to deal with. We have the resources and experience to deal with, but then you also learn. Right? You'll get experience. You'll get certain qualifications and OIP systems. To kind of do anything, you have to have an AS9100 quality certification, a quality management system. We brought companies along on that journey to increase their capability, and that opens other doors. So that would be my advice: is figure out that path.
And I think we'll have some of the folks from PTAC up here later today that maybe they'll give some advice on that. But being that moderator, because I'm having too much fun up here it only can't stop. But thank you all of you for being here this morning. And I know we'll try to be around here for a little bit if anybody has any specific questions. So.
Thank you, John Myers. Thank you, Mr.